Well, hello everyone. This is Abhiram Kancharla, and welcome to our DMCtv panel interview. For this episode, our guest is Jen Laymen, the founder and owner of Central Ohio Service Dogs. Welcome to our show, Mrs. Laymen.
Thank you for having me.
In this panel interview, we'll learn all about the history and the mission of Central Ohio Service Dogs. All that and much more, so stay tuned. So, tell us a little bit about your childhood.
Well, I grew up in here in Columbus, mainly in Dublin. I went to Dublin Scioto High School, and I've always loved animals my entire life.
Well, I guess we share the same interests then. Trust me, I've been begging my mom for a dog for the past few months.
Yeah, it takes a lot of persuasion for some parents.
What were your interests in high school?
My main interests in high school were a lot of how to run a business. I helped my dad to run his own business, and that's how I learned a lot about running the business that I do now.
Nice. So, what do people use service dogs for?
There's a bunch of different disabilities, anywhere from what we refer to as invisible disabilities. So maybe something that you can't see from the outside, like depression, anxiety, maybe they have seizures, anywhere to more of the physical disabilities, like someone needing help with a wheelchair, picking items up when they're dropped, or any of the different things that you may be able to see more outwardly.
Nice.
How can someone qualify for a service dog? Do you need a recommendation from a doctor?
Every program is different, and some programs do require a note from or a letter from a doctor or a psychiatrist, psychologist. But our specific program follows what the federal law says, in that each person gets to determine on their own whether they are disabled or not. That does not mean that they have to be on disability, but that they do need to have something that impairs their day-to-day function to a certain level for that dog to be able to qualify as a medical aid to help them.
Okay. So do you sell service dogs or can people rent them from?
Actually, neither. So, renting is a question that's actually come up from a couple of people. We do not do that just because each person's disability is so different from the next. Selling service dogs, Ohio kind of has, I guess, some different parts in the way that a business aspect works, in that we don't actually charge for the dog. We only charge for the lessons or the training that the dog receives, and we don't charge a fee for the dog itself.
Okay.
So, can people bring you a dog and you train it?
Yes, that is the majority of what we do when we train dogs. Either someone will already have a dog, or they'll go to a breeder and get a puppy, maybe to the shelter and get a rescue, and they'll bring that dog to us for training, and we work with them on a weekly basis to accomplish their goals.
Nice. Dogs are cute. I like them. So, do people need a special permit to bring a service dog in a store or take on an airplane?
On an airplane, the requirements have changed to allow the different airline companies to require that the dog has up-to-date medical care with their vaccinations and a physical, just to make sure that they're healthy enough to be able to fly and that there aren't going to be any complications with them on the flight. Going into different stores, doctor's appointments, different things like that, there are no requirements that can be enforced to have the person show certain documentation to gain access.
Nice.
So, do you train the dogs and their owners?
Yes, I actually sometimes think that I train more people than I do dogs. But I work with each individual handler and their dog on a weekly basis because each person is going to have their own goals.
It's very unique.
Thank you.
So where is your training facility?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
So where is your training facility?
We are located in Reynoldsburg, which is about 5 minutes east of Columbus, Ohio.
That's interesting.
So can children use service dogs?
Can someone, I'm sorry, you cut out.
Can children use service dogs?
Oh, yes. I would say about 25% of the people that either already have a service dog from our training organization or who are currently in training with their dog are children under the age of 18.
Nice. Must be fun.
Yes, it is a lot of fun.
So, do you offer training for children and their dogs?
Yes, a lot of times the parents are also involved, just because we feel that there's a whole family dynamic that needs to work, especially if the dog isn't ready to go to school yet with the child, and the parents need to handle the dog while they're at home and the training gets completed.
So, do you have any stories of a service dog saving someone's life?
I like to say that service dogs save people's lives every day in small little ways that are actually quite large to their handlers. One instance in particular with a dog that I train with pretty regularly, even though they've already graduated from our program, they've made the choice to continue training just to kind of keep everything polished on a consistent basis. And the dog's name is Cirrus. He is a large white German Shepherd, and he does medical alerts to his mom's blood sugar, either getting too high or going too low. And that can be really dangerous as well as life-threatening if the person doesn't know that it's happening. So that's why the dog is trained to alert them. And almost on a weekly basis, Cirrus does his alerts as he's supposed to, and has been continuing to keep his mom healthy and save her life.
I never thought of it as like each and every day your dog is technically saving your life, but helping you in small ways that seem small to you, but they're still big in the long run. I never thought of it that way.
Yep, that's correct.
They're very helpful.
Yes, they are.
So,
do
does
you-
your
Do you have any stories of senior citizens successfully using service dogs?
Not offhand. Most of our students are younger, probably under the age of 50. We have only had one service dog for someone who is a senior, and he was trained to go and push a button for help if his owner were to fall.
Nice. So can service dogs be trained for self-defense?
It's kind of an unspoken taboo that they shouldn't be, but there's no actual law that restricts them from being trained to protect their owner. However, our organization strongly recommends against it just because it can be a very large liability.
Nice.
So, does your organization provide dog food, accessories, and other products?
No, that is up to the each individual owner. Different people may want their dogs on a different diet or to use a different harness, as compared to someone else that's in the organization. So each person is responsible for their own dog and their own dog's care.
Okay.
How many service dogs have you trained?
I actually lost count. But we're doing a recent project where we have printed off all the photos in the last 10 years of all of the graduates from our program, and I believe we were at 147.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
So since you have trained like many number of dogs, is there any like so close special dog to you that you cannot forget? And why is it so special?
Actually, one of the most special dogs that is always in my mind and I keep in regular contact with is Jordy. And you actually have his picture up over there. He's the black standard poodle. Jordy was actually trained and lived with me for about 18 months of the beginning of his life. And he was actually going to be my service dog as my older service dog had needed to be retired. And unfortunately, Jordy did not meet all of my needs. One of those being that he was not kind of compatible with my body chemistry. And so he didn't alert to me like a lot of the other dogs did, or what I was really expecting a dog to do. The second being that he didn't get tall enough for me and what I needed with my mobility needs. And so he went to another handler in Texas, and he just turned 9 years old this year. And she is working on training for her next service dog through our organization, which is actually my current service dog. It is his son. So they're pretty closely connected. And his handler and I talk almost on a weekly basis.
Wow, he must be very nice and cute.
Yes, he is a very, very special boy.
So what came after high school?
I actually went to college at 2 different colleges. The first college that I started at was Sinclair Community College down in Dayton. And it was the first time that I was ever away from home. And I really learned a lot about business, as well as I had a secondary major in art. And it was a lot of fun learning a lot of different things. I went there for about a year and I transferred my credits to the Columbus Community College. And so I went to finish out the rest of my degree, and actually did not end up finishing because I had to move out of state. But the different thing about dog training is that there's no college degree for dog training. They want more of certifications. So if you ever are looking at becoming a dog trainer, focusing on like animal behavioral sciences through college, as well as certifications through mentorship, is probably the best way to go to enter that type of job field.
That's interesting.
So tell us about your professional background.
Well, I've been training dogs since my early 20s. So I have most of my work history before that in customer service, whether that was in retail stores that I worked when I was in high school, or a couple of restaurants that I managed through college. It always surrounded customer service and running and managing businesses. So that's played a lot into, running and managing my business on my own, and helping to make it as successful as I can.
Nice.
So, what led up to your starting Central Ohio Service Dogs?
Well, in my early 20s, after I had stopped going to college classes and moved out of state, I kind of wanted a buddy to hang around the house, and I wasn't really allowed to have pets growing up. So I figured this was a good time to make my first big adult decision. So I went to a shelter and adopted a dog, and he was going to be my amazing hiking buddy. And it turned into so much more than that, as I ended up being diagnosed with a few different health issues that have kind of stuck with me. But I ended up being able to learn on my own how to train him to help me with those ongoing disabilities.
Mm-hmm. How can someone qualify for a service dog? Do you need a recommendation from a doctor?
No, you don't actually, through our organization at least, need a recommendation from a doctor. Some organizations do require that you have a letter stating that you are disabled. But under the federal law, it allows each individual person to determine their level of disability. So we do not require a letter.
Mm-hmm. So, do you sell service dogs, or can people rent them from you?
Well, we don't actually do rentals because of the wide variety of different disabilities that each person has. But we do sell training packages. So while we don't actually charge anything for the dogs from our organization, we do charge for the training that either we do with that specific dog, or that we do with the person who brings their dog to us.
So what type of disabilities do you train for?
Our organization trains for all different types of disabilities except for what is referred to as full visual impairment. So if somebody has any eye or brain disorder that causes them to not be able to see, we refer them on to another organization that specifically trains just for that. But we train for everything else. So it could be depression, anxiety, seizures, migraines, high and low blood sugar. We train for a couple of different disabilities called POTS, POTS. We train for people who are in wheelchairs for different types of disabilities, or who have balance issues. We also train service dogs for kids who have ADHD, autism. They may be deaf, or have mobility issues of their own. So many different things.
That's a lot of different animals.
Yep.
That's so nice of you. So, do you have any breed restrictions or size requirements?
We do not have any breed restrictions, as we feel that all dogs should at least have the chance to be evaluated. Not every dog that gets evaluated obviously makes it into the program, but we at least give each dog that's brought to us a chance. Size wise, the only restriction that we have is if the person needs a dog for mobility, like I was referring to before with Jordy. He only got about 25 inches in height, and because of my height being about 5 foot, I needed a dog that was about 27 inches at the shoulder. So for some mobility or task needs that the dog has to do certain things for that person's disability, the height can be very important. It just depends on the person's size, how big or small the dog could be. But if it's just for medical alert and response, or for maybe a child with autism, there is no size requirement.
How long does it take on average to graduate from your program?
On average, our students graduate within 10 months of training from our program. A couple of students have graduated early in the past, and some just because of the length of the goals that they have when they come to us need a little bit extra time, but average is about 10 months.
Cool.
Go back to Q6 then.
Q6, okay. Okay. What led up to your starting Central Ohio Service Dogs?
Well, I had over a number of years in the beginning of COSD, maybe about 15 years ago, I had started to help some other organizations in the state of Ohio kind of get caught up where they were behind or had large, long waiting lists of people wanting service dogs. And I had seen some things kind of behind the scenes that I, did like, and stuff that I thought, could have been done better or changed either for the dogs or the people. And none of the organizations that I worked with were open to wanting to kind of change or edit anything that they were currently doing with their dogs or their students, to kind of open new doors. So for instance, a couple of the organizations only did board and train. So they would go and select the dog and train it for the person, and the person wasn't allowed to choose their own dog. And so I thought, it'd be a great idea if people were allowed to choose their own dog. And the organizations were just not open to that. So after I came up with my own list of ideas to where I felt that I could help people that some of the organizations weren't able to reach out to, I put all those ideas together and went ahead and started COSD. And it's been working like a well-oiled machine ever since.
Wow, cool. And is there any other animal you train?
Yes, actually I do. Not normally for other people, but for friends and for fun, and sometimes some of the animals that I foster in my home. I've trained with ferrets, guinea pigs, rats, rabbits, birds, and cats.
Oh my God, that's a lot.
If people would like to learn more and follow your activities, what can they do?
The best way to follow what we're doing is to like our main Facebook page at Central Ohio Service Dogs. The other thing they can do, which we are working on getting people caught up on, is our YouTube page.
Well, thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me.
And I'd like to thank all of our viewers. Please consider liking and sharing this episode. This is Abiram Kancharla reporting for Digital Media Club TV.